We still have a forum here.
They just pop, then there's the station. You know, Sarah's coming.
She said she, I saw her with the planning.
So we gotta go.
We did. We still have a forum here.
They just pop.
How we doing, Matt?
This person.
It looks like Ray's online.
Oh,
It looks like Ray's dialed in.
okay, so we're all electronically on ready?
Yep.
All right. We'll call the special meeting of the town of Hancock to order. Roll call, please.
Bill, I like having you on town council. She like.
Councilmember Holdren. Present.
That live right now?
Councilmember Oswald.
Present.
Okay, the form is established.
Thank you. Do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is the microphone on? Anybody hear me? Not working.
Yeah, the microphone.
They're not working. All right. Okay. I'll yell very loud. A couple of brief comments before we have the, at the last council meeting, the council decided to have a work session today to discuss the town plan, or the town master plan proposals. It was at that time, it was understood this was going to be a work session. Since then, we needed to pass a resolution to, for the war to get some money, to make things legal. But what it was something that had been done for the war previously. So we need to have a regular session. So this is not a work session. And at that meeting, I asked Matt to come up with some numbers to present to council for possible to the school pavilion. So we are not going to vote on anything tonight. This is a work session. We're going to consider it a work session, even though we're going to vote on one thing in the resolution for the war. So you're welcome. It is a regular town council meeting, so there will be public comment, but we will probably not. We're not going to vote on anything tonight. We will vote on. We could have a vote at the next council meeting, which will be November 8th, 2 weeks from yesterday. Correct? Yes. Okay. So you're welcome to make comments at public comment.
Mr. Mayor, in light of how many people there are you gonna limit the time?
Yeah, we are gonna limit the time to 2.5 minutes, and yeah, if somebody could pass a sign up sheet around, we could get people to sign up and they want to make public comment.
There is
You'll
a sign.
have time to make public comment at the next meeting as well. So we're not gonna. So we're gonna change we're gonna do the resolution for the big voting infrastructure grant first. So Matt, could you fill us in on that, please?
Yeah, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we received funds from the Department of Health, who runs what's called a big grant, which is a voting infrastructure grant. We've already done all the work. We've already been reimbursed. Everything's done, but at the VDH, they require a town resolution in order to close their file.
Okay, that's it. So we have a motion on the floor. We need to approve that resolution.
Is there a special?
We have to have a roll call vote,
Okay.
but other than that,
Can somebody read a motion out? We approve you need a motion.
Fairly lengthy.
Can you
You
abbreviate
want
it?
to just?
well, I mean, you could just ask to adopt the resolution 2022-11-08-01 as presented in the pack tonight.
So moved.
Any discussion on that item? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Berger.
He's muted.
Okay. Councilmember Holdren.
Aye.
Councilmember Knox.
Aye.
Councilmember Gillespie. Councilmember Marino.
Aye.
Councilmember Oswald. Aye. And Mayor Foskey.
I don't vote.
Okay.
I just spotted another typo at the bottom of the resolution page.
it says Department of Heath, not Department of Health.
Thank you.
All righty, well, that carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're back to the second item is the feasibility of funding the Friends of Natchez the Pavilion. At the last meeting, we directed asked Matt if there was, if that funding, if we chose some funding, is that available? Where would we get it? Is that possible? So you gave us some information there.
Sure, I presented three different options, one of which is to use the additional funds in our cash reserve, which basically is a savings account. We have a financial policy that we put in place about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and that determines what level of reserves we have for individual purposes. We have a grant or project reserve, and that policy says we could fund it up to $250,000. We have a capital asset reserve, which is, and some of these are a little complicated, but it's 25% of the 5-year capital expenditure plan. Then we have a general fund reserve, which is 30% of the budgeted reserve of the budgeted revenue. And then we have a utility reserve, and that has a few different components of how the amounts come together. Is it's 120 days operating expenditures for the utility only, 30% of the accumulated depreciation. That also covers any bond requirements that we have. And then $15,000 for any road disturbance that we have, and we can use that to fix. All of those told, we've got a required reserve of $1,857,000. We have additional, in order to bring it up to those full levels, we would have to contribute $372,000 from operating reserves. We have $858,000 in operating reserves, which means we have excess reserves or cash on hand of $485,000. So we could use $100,000 of that $485,000, which would still leave us excess reserves of $385,000. So that's option one. Option two is that this year we budgeted, because of the one-time sewer overage we're going to have, because we don't have the operating costs, but we have some of the revenue. We budgeted for $283,715 to transfer to reserves. We could use $100,000 of that and still have $183,715 of remaining budgeted reserve transfer. And then the last item, this is a lot of numbers on this piece of paper, but at the end of the day, what it says is we have $1.5 million in cash. Last year, we had $1 million in cash, so we have $478,000 more in cash this year than last. So we could use operating cash of $100,000, which would leave us $378,000. So there are three different options. I don't have a priority. I don't have a recommendation. I'm just presenting you the feasibility.
In the ARPA funds, where did the excess come from? The extra almost 500,000
There is no excess. The excess
or
is
the
cash.
increase year over year?
Where's the excess cash come from?
Yes, that was my question. too.
We have excess cash from revenue exceeding budgeted expenses. And quite a bit of that comes from the sewer this year.
And that's in the ARPA project.
It's not in the ARPA project. But the way the ARPA, the reason ARPA is put on that piece of paper is because right now we have basically the ARPA funds are in a savings account. We use our checking account to pay all the expenses. We have yet to transfer $128,000 from the savings account to cover what we've already paid out of operating. That's why the ARPA is on this piece of paper. We're not using ARPA funds. I'm just showing you that we have the reserve from ARPA and we've spent to this point 911. The difference of the two is the 128 that we just simply haven't transferred from savings to checking because I want to keep it interest bearing.
So none of these options are using ARPA money?
None.
Okay, are we clear about that? Okay.
Yeah. have a question about the reserves. Could you go over again the required reserve?
Sure. The required reserve says that we are required to have a grant matching or project reserve fund of up to $250,000. We have a required reserve for capital asset purchases equivalent to 25% of the 5-year capital expense plan. So we put together a budget at budget time that showed, $515,000 of accumulated capital expense over that period. We're required to have 25% of that in a reserve. And then the last one, well, not the last one, the general fund reserve, that's basically just like we should all have at home, a percentage of our annual expenditure put aside. We said 30% of budgeted revenue should be our reserve. And then the last one is the utility reserve. At this point, obviously, it's only for the water department. So we have 120 days of operating expenses, just like we have in general fund, it's 120 days there. And then we have 30% of accumulated depreciation. Accumulated depreciation means that you take the value of an asset and divide it over its useful life, and that's what you depreciate each year. Accumulated depreciation means since the asset was purchased, what is the accumulated amount of that depreciation? The concept here is that once it's fully depreciated, you've accumulated enough money to buy a new one. Okay, and it's required to have $958,000. And if you think that's a lot of money, it is, but the water tower is a pretty expensive piece of equipment. So it's designed to be able to replace an asset without having to go out and borrow too much money.
Any comments, or do we want to hear public comments, or what?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, according to Robert's Rules of Order, a motion must be made, seconded, and stated before council discussion can occur.
Well, this is we're treating this as a work session. So we're not going to make.
You're going to let discussion happen.
Well, this is, we're not going to, this discussion is not going to be voted. Yeah, so we're treating this as a work session, so we can talk about it. Yeah.
Are we discussing just the funding?
It's just,
We're just talking about availability and our ability.
right, and what, yeah, and other,
That's all we're discussing.
right, yeah. I mean,
Well, that's clear.
I mean, that's all that we advertise this meeting to talk about. It's not, yeah. So, yeah, we're talking about funding options, whether, that's up to council.
Are we legally required to have a set amount of cash reserves?
No, it's not legal. It was a policy that I suggested the council put in a few years ago because we had reserves that didn't have any designated purpose.
The utility reserve is a requirement, is it not?
There used to be a requirement to cover bond. We had to have a certain amount of the percentage of assets and a certain amount of maintenance and special maintenance. Those two requirements were for the sewer bonds. Those have been relieved. Our water bonds have all told $52,000 worth of required coverage. So that easily falls within the amount we've got.
Thank you.
So looking at it overall, it appears that there are multiple ways that we can fund this
If you choose to,
request,
yes.
if we choose to, and that's the other part. Is
One.
the request from the school to help build the pavilion,
$100,000.
$100,000 request at the October meeting? The presentation that
Okay.
that Joni and Rich came in. So the thing that I wonder is there any, well, what are the pros and cons of the various choices that you presented? And is there any advantage in presuming that we opt to do the funding, a combination of part out of this kind of reserves and part out of there and part out of somewhere else? Or is it fungible enough that it really doesn't matter?
Well, it is that. So thanks for using the word I was just going to use. So yes, money is fungible, but if you're asking me what my preference would be as the treasury manager, I would use operating funds because those aren't interest bearing. The others are minorly interest bearing. I mean, they're in treasury, so that would be.
Before we make comment on whether we want to or can fund this pavilion, I'd like to know how it was going to be funded before and what sources are going to be
Now we're in
used.
discussion.
And if you're gonna, and if you're, excuse me?
Another, we're just at a point of order.
And if you're building something, wouldn't you know how much it's gonna cost before you start? And how you're gonna get that money? So to come to us at this stage of the game to say, we need $100,000, when I feel blindsided actually, because we were never told that there would be a funding requirement to this pavilion. And if it was my property, my own personal property, and a tenant wanted to put an outhouse or something up on it, and I would say, if you're going to do it, it's up to you, but it's mine. So take that into consideration. So I'm just saying, I do feel blindsided that we're getting this at the stage of the, there's footings. You got the footings in, and now you're coming to say, we need money.
Is Joni, are you here? Do you want to make you want to comment on that? Is that okay if she makes a comment?
Well, I would like to make a comment first.
Yeah.
In relation to what Mavis is saying, and that's what I wanted to say was that I think it would be good if the Historic and Hancock School would submit a written project proposal to the town council within 30 days. That would include blueprints, a line item budget, and a business plan, and then the town attorney could evaluate it, the proposal, and provide a written assessment of the town's responsibilities and liabilities. Then we would be, we have a lease. I think the lease needs to be looked at and several other items would be
We've already voted to allow them to build it.
true.
Right. Yeah, so that's kind of a moot point now.
Okay, we
Yeah.
can leave out, but I do.
The money,
think we
question we're
should
talking
have
about, yeah. No, I agree with you. The first, I'm just saying
building
that,
plans,
yeah.
line
Okay, yeah.
item budget.
Well, does Joni, yeah, okay, you want to make a presentation or about the funding or anything, or? You want to come up front, please? Wait, is that okay with council? She responds? No,
I think that's information we need.
yeah, yeah.
Here to listen, speak,
No microphone loud.
no microphone.
That-
That one works.
That one works.
Just turn it on. Yes, okay. The word requirement, we did not ask as a requirement for you to fund us, we requested. So I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. I didn't mean
Um,
to put words in your mouth.
no, well, I just wanted to clarify for everyone else too, it was not a requirement, it was a request.
Yes.
We are in the midst of a capital campaign or a small, quiet, targeted campaign right now. We do have ideas of budget and they can be presented, the outline, what we have now. Many things are going to come in the spring and the price, we are not even going to know until they landed because of the supply side problem, but we have a buffer in our budget. What we know is going to be with allowing for a 15-20% increase. We have plans. We have all engineered reports. We have all the inspection and the permits and everything. It's not been in the works for a year now. So I guess if ARPA was happening this time, if we had our plans this time last year, we would have asked during ARPA, but we did not have everything in a row at the August work session. I think it was in 2021 to ask. The seed was there, but this has all been a year of planning. So, yes, we can supply things for you, numbers, budget. The plans are there. We have everything. We are pretty much finished what we're going to do this fall because of weather. We wanted to get a foundation in. Everything else will wait. We're doing our campaign and we have a plan.
Thank you.
Wasn't prepared to present anything else today, so sorry, that's all I can respond to at this very moment in time. But I'm happy to be here, thank the people who are here and listen to people who have other comments that we can work with.
We're not, like I said, it's not, we're not gonna make any decisions tonight, so anything that you have to present, we'll be happy to see.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Before you leave,
Yes.
let me ask a question.
Mhm.
Mr. King, Rick King sent us, well, actually it was word from Mr. Spot to us, as you should be aware of what you're doing and what's going on. And he said, you know, contact me if you have any questions. Well, I did have questions, but I don't have his email or address or phone number. So if you could supply those to us,
Mhm.
then we could get back. And also he mentioned that Robert Sabatini at Eastern Shore Tourism is putting together a 5-year projection of economic.
We do have that in hand.
You have that.
Mhm.
Very good. Okay, see, and is Mr. King the contractor on this project?
He is the general contractor.
Is there a performance bond?
I didn't hear you.
Performance bond.
Not that I'm aware.
Is there a performance bond? She's asking you.
Is there? Mr.
No.
King? Okay, no.
Council comments, do we want to, hear from the public on this, or do you want to,
We definitely want
I
to.
can understand.
do you want to hear from the public comments, open up, because I think most people here to comment about this. But, so do we have a list of how many people are around? Okay, give it to the mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say that I think, we've got a lot of pros and cons and emails.
Yeah.
From people.
Well, you've gotten all the emails the town got are in your packet here.
Right, so.
Do we need to hear from those same people again, if we've already received them?
I don't know, there's so many different emails. Should we? Oh.
This is regular. Some of them want to comment, they didn't realize they had this sign in.
So where's the first one here?
That's just a regular sign-in sheet.
Oh, this is the
This should
comment.
be for public, right?
Okay, so I have two people on here, but there might be some more. Hayden Rochester?
Am I the only one on the list?
No, there's two people on here.
Well, no, if it's all right, since I'm on the board of the Historic Hancock School, if the other people are talking on that same subject, and I don't think it's said on the list what you're talking about, but if they're talking on the same subject, it might be better if they spoke first, and then I can address any comments that they have that need addressing.
Glenn Smith is the second person, Glenn?
I'd like to see the, John,
Yes, sir.
Uh,
I hear you.
who knows?
I'd like to see the town honor the request of $100,000. That is the only venue in this town that every age group can use. Okay, that is the only venue in town that any type of person, whether they have a handicap or not, it's totally handicap accessible. And it is the only venue in town that offers that opportunity. And it is a huge benefit to this town to have the pavilion being built there. Kids of all ages can take use of it. Adults of all ages. Adults of handicap, children with handicap. It's just a great place, and it would only be better. And it would only bring more business into this town. It's also a place to go where parents can go with their kids and they don't have to spend a dime. It doesn't cost the visitors anything to go there. But when they're done, they're gonna come into town and walk into the stores in town and spend money there. It's the town's advantage to have this pavilion built. And I can't see why there would be any downfall to it. And hearing the numbers tonight, it seems like it shouldn't be too hard to come up with, to match the request that Joni's put in. Thank you.
I think there was a confusion between who was here signing up as being here and who wanted to speak. So, does anyone else want to speak? Second row. I'm sorry, I can't see you. Oh, so. Yeah.
Just leave me your address, please.
Sure.
I'm Greg Feldhausen. I live at 5 8th Street. And I'd like to preface my questions and comments, first by saying that I would agree with the gentleman that just made his comments. I fully have supported in the past the Onancock School and its processes and its art foundation and all of the things associated with that. And I would continue to support that. The problem, though, that has arisen is, and I don't mean to use the word secretive, but nobody in my neighborhood, that's on Mount Prospect, was invited to comment or put input into plans for this pavilion. So like you, I was somewhat shocked that the foundation was half built before I ever saw it. And, you know, when the town can send out an email blast saying that the water's going to be shut off, and everybody in town knows about it, it would seem to me that something as significant as this project should have been brought out, posters stuck on telephone poles or whatever to say that we've got a project going on that's going to affect the community in a big way. So the issue really gets down to public safety, the noise levels, which are very significant. And for those who live in the surrounding neighborhood around the school, I can't say strongly enough how impactful the loud noise is, whether it be in the afternoon or in the evenings. Now, other issues that associate with public safety are how the roads are used, how the parking is going to be, how often the venues are going to be used in the evening times, which even more so impact the restful neighborhoods that many of us moved to this town to make use of. I have many children myself. I would like to have them utilize a facility like this, grandchildren included. As I said, I've supported this financially, the school financially in the past, and I would continue to do so. But I think certain restrictions need to be placed on the use of the pavilion for all of our benefit, and so that it doesn't impact the town in a negative way. The comment was made that many people would be coming from that venue and into the town. I have a hard time understanding how that's going to happen at 9 and 10 o'clock at night and not affect every one of us here in town and the public safety and the policing and all of the things that go with it.
Thank you, your time.
Is that enough? Thank you very, very much.
Anyone else? I can't see. Yeah, come on. I can't see. Yeah,
Jeff Dakin. I'm sorry, I wasn't on the list.
it's okay. That list has got them confused here.
I would have to say that I'm surprised that anyone feels blindsided by this, especially since the school has been there since 1921. It's had various events there, football games, concerts. We've had concerts there since the early 2000s to benefit the food bank, lots of things. This has constantly been abandoned. It does children's plays, musical concerts. There's no surprise in this. So I'm a little surprised that anyone would object to this after moving to an Onancock and, you know, wonder, well, what is that big red building? It could have been a nursing home or an auto repair shop. If you do your diligence when you buy your property, I think you would find out that it has been an active venue for nearly 100 years. And I think the town should recognize that and should fund it. I don't think that anyone really should be surprised by the noise. And I know that I live in Mount Prospect. I don't think it was really a secret what was going on. I just think we ought to fund this and not really act like it was a surprise. And also, I don't think that any of the restrictions that you're talking about should be tied to the money. I know that'll be an issue, but I'm sure they'll come with all sorts of DB and A-weighted and whatever nonsense they come up with, but that would be very difficult to enforce. So I think we should see how the venue goes and then deal with it responsibly if there's a problem afterward. Thank you.
Other comment?
Good evening. I'm Patsy Feldhausen and I live with Greg on 5 Ames Street. I would like to reiterate the most salient point he made. No one is against the school or the progress of the school. We fully understand the deep emotional impact that the school has to the entire community. That is not the issue. Yes, the building was there when we bought our home in 5 Ames Street. It did not have a performance pavilion there. It has a beautiful playground for children, and there is nothing more joyous than hearing the delight of kids playing. But we walked over to the school just this past Saturday to see what was going on, and we met Mr. Rick King while we were there. His outlook on this is a huge performance venue that is going to impact the entire community surrounding the school. He said that there is parking there for 300 to 500 cars, which would mean that every spot along College Avenue and Liberty Street, which is already a narrow, treacherous road, down Ames would be occupied by cars. He envisions 10 to 12 performances throughout the summer, beginning at 7 in the evening and going until 10:30 at night. The venue is designed to be self-contained in that the little cottage is going to be redone so that it has an state-of-the-art electrical system to support all the vendors and all the beverage conveyors that are there. It is not going to be conducive to leave the pavilion itself. When we first heard about the pavilion, which was in May of this past year, it was presented as a picnic pavilion to us. Delightful. People could rent it and bring their families. Church organizations could rent it and be in a sheltered spot. So we were quite surprised to see the scope of this and understand the impact that it would have. I think we cannot blithely go along and say, well, let's see what happens first, because traffic is going to be a huge obstacle. One of the biggest venue revenues is the selling of alcoholic beverages. Is that to be contained within the park itself? You have to provide facilities for a crowd, which Mr. King is anticipating. So is there going to be a line of porta potties along that pristine creek? There just are a lot of questions that have not been answered. Again, no one is against the school becoming the thriving operation that it can be. None of us. But there are obstacles and huge considerations long-term. And the funds,
I think your time is
Oh.
time is up.
I'm done.
Thank you, thank you.
Priscilla Hart. I sent a letter to members of the board and can you hear me? I sent a letter to members of the board and I stand corrected. What you did authorize was going forward with the project with the understanding that the funding was there. I am not surprised that the pavilion is in discussion. I've known about it. What I am surprised about is the funding. I was under the impression, because that's what I heard, that the funding was available. And with that, it went forward. And the board did vote to approve it based upon that. There wasn't any discussion about how we were going to pay for it. because it was my understanding, I'm maybe incorrect, that the school was going to raise funds throughout the year. So the school's a very nice facility. It does, it contributes to the community, but I also agree with the woman who just spoke that there are a lot of other considerations and there is going to be a lot of expenditure involved in this project. And in this economic climate, I'm not so sure, because we can't project what inflation is going to be. I'm not so sure this is a great endeavor at this point. I don't know how financially sound going forward with this project would be. I know the footings are in, we could table it for a year. How much construction gets tabled? Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay, go please.
Joe Hill on Liberty Lanes, which I think people are aware of that intersection already. Kind of a contingent intersection. I know people have been here before. Oops, sorry about that. I'm just curious in all the plans and studies if there's been an impact study as far as traffic in the surrounding neighborhood. My concern is how are we going to mitigate? We have 100 cars come out of college, take a right-hand turn. You have 100 cars backed up. Are there any plans to deviate the traffic, or we just going to see what happens and say sorry about your luck? Or have we even considered the traffic flow and impact on the neighborhood?
I think,
No,
I think Joni's, don't you have some numbers about parking availability?
well, it's not necessarily parking. I'm not worried about parking.
Oh, you're talking about flow, yeah.
Traffic
I,
flow.
I don't think there's any, I think they've counted parking spaces, but
Yeah.
traffic flow,
To me, it's a big deal. I see
Especially in-
property values or quality of life issues. And I'm not saying don't build a pavilion.
right.
I'm saying there's certain dominoes that need to be reversed after they fall. And I hope there'd be some sort of study and kind of comments on how we would handle that. Once again, it's quality of life issues. We have a front porch. If we've got traffic coming to the venue at 6:30, it kind of puts a damper on that. Then at 10 o'clock when you're leaving too, there's headlight issues, there's car noise issues, there's this and that. I'm not making this up as I go along. We live with it every time we're on the porch here now. We contact people. It seems to be not a big deal at this stage. I just don't want to figure that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Public comment? Public comment about anything else? Hayden's your last.
Hayden Rochester. I live at 39 King Street, member of the board of the Historic Hancock School. I'm not going to attempt to address traffic flow and headlights and similar things at this point. But I'd like to say a couple of things. One is, and I'm not sure everybody here realizes this, the school is leased to the Friends of the Hancock School, except for relatively minor contributions from the town, and I very much appreciate them. They helped us tear down some buildings. They've done a lot of things like chipping stuff trees that we cut down. We are totally responsible for the maintenance of that building and the maintenance of the grounds. And I would hope that everybody would think a little bit about what would be there if we weren't doing it. The reason for this pavilion, among other things, aside from the fact that we think it would be a worthwhile asset, is that we need revenue to maintain an over 100-year-old building that was very poorly maintained under the years that the county leased it from the town, and this is a source of revenue for us. We certainly do not intend to be a bad neighbor. And as far as the thing about blindsiding the council, I'm sorry about that. But really, the motivation of that was not, oh, well, we need some money, give us $100,000. It was, the town is the owner of this property, and we thought they might like to contribute to putting a permanent asset on their property. If they don't, well, then we'll have to go find the money somewhere else, I suppose.
But, it was certainly not a thing of, oh, we don't know where we're gonna get $100,000. We're coming to you to see if you'll give it to us. It was not like that at all. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Rick?
Rick Turner, 309 Cox Street. I am also a member of the board, and I think perhaps one issue could be, I hope it's not true, but could be that we did not make it clear to everyone that this was our goal and this was our plan. And if that's true, certainly we're sorry about that. But I think there are some misconceptions. For instance, the one that someone or many may have thought this was a play pavilion. I don't think that was ever intended and never even spoken. I just heard it the first time tonight. If that's true, certainly we should have attempted to ameliorate that particular issue. But the other things I'd like to say real fast is that we plan to do this with the idea of not just seeing it as a moneymaker, but as something really positive for the town. And I think most of the people in the town think that. If you think back a few years, for instance, if you're worried about noise and traffic, we used to have football games here at that school that you could hear the noise out at Four Corners. And we had thousands of people lining the streets, and somehow or another, no one died, and there weren't any real crises. So it's not as though nothing's ever happened there. The other thing is that we don't plan to have something there every night with excessive drinking and Billy Joel. That's not going to be happening. What we haven't maybe said is that what the one gentleman said is that we have goals to have movies there and plays there and a variety of children's events there. And I really don't see anybody really being too upset about that. And quickly, one more thing, and that is the money issue. It does sound like it's a little unclear, but as Hayden said, we were hoping that the town would really feel as though this is something that they want, and therefore the town council would want to be a part of it. Since we've, I think, been very successful in a number of years running this almost independently, haven't asked for a lot of help from the town, and this would be a way for the town to show they're totally behind it. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
May I speak again? If I had my 2.5 minutes.
No, you can't take away with mine. Sure, yeah. Anybody else, first of all, if anybody else want to comment? Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Well, just what I expressed was told to me by Mr. King, who is a board member. Nothing I said was hyperbole from what he stated to me. He also said, I think initially it was presented to the council that the pavilion was going to run between $350,000 and $450,000. It is well now over $500,000. The school needs over $1 million to put on a new roof, which Mr. King said was at least $500,000. It needs new HVAC, which is at least $250,000. And it needs all new windows, which is at least $250,000. Mr. King did, throughout our conversation, use the name of Billy Joel. I said to him, are you inferring that Billy Joel is going to be here? And he said, no, but I know his technical guy and we could get a Billy Joel tribute band. He did state that there would be 10 to 12 performances through the year, music performances. He compared it to the Freeman Arts Center in Fenwick Island in Delaware. And that they would be partnering with the Levitt Foundation, which brings in acts and supports underused music pavilions. So I think it clearly there is confusion about this. And some people, as you described, and Mr. Turner described, have a very different view than what was explained to us just in a casual conversation. So I do think it does need much more planning And if you go back through the minutes of the town council, back in March, the council was told, we have the funds. It is stated in the minutes. And now there's like, well, we don't have the funds, but we are going to be securing them. Again, Greg and I are all for supporting the arts. We have done it for years. We purchased art from 4 different people who have studios there. That is not the point. It's having a full picture before all of this is completed. And I don't know that, I think we cannot blindly go.
Your second
into
2.5 minutes, right?
it. All right. I'm done again.
Third time's a charm. What 3 strikes you're out? Sure, you're doing good.
Any other public comment? I think we have, there are 2 issues on the table here. One is the pavilion itself. That's been approved. There are some serious issues with noise. There could be serious issues with parking, egress, ingress, outgress, alcohol consumption. That can be, that can be controlled by the town owns the property. So we have some more leverage than in a private property. So I think all of us are concerned about that, and we can work that out. The other question is the funding, which is a separate issue. So, and that's up to where the council wants to do that. So, if we want to, with the discussion tonight is more about funding. I think we've got a lot to talk about other planning with the facility. There are some issues definitely that I think can be worked out. In full, I'm a member of the board of the school. So is Ray, who is not, that's by the lease requires that a member of council and the mayor be part of the school board. I've been to their meetings. They're certainly they're going to work with us about noise. I don't think it's set in stone what they're going to, who they're going to book yet. We have some control of the noise levels, things like that. Yeah.
How do we have control?
Well, it turns out that we do have we have a noise ordinance.
And that just.
But if you have a noise ordinance, but if there's a permit granted for an event, and I don't know when you have to permit each of these events in this venue, I don't know that. And if you have a noise ordinance, how do you enforce it 12 times a year, or do you allow it to go on?
Well, I think
That's a minimum of 12.
well, I think there's a lot of concern there, but we've already voted to allow the
I have
project.
no problem with building the pavilion, but the use was not made clear to me. Perhaps everybody else got it. I didn't.
I don't know where picnic pavilion ever got it anywhere. I never
said
heard that
picnic,
anywhere.
I just said pavilion. and
But I agree, there are a lot of issues. I'm not saying they're not issues there. I think they can be, the school's a good neighbor, we own the property. I think we can work those out.
And to me, it seems as though the fact of the rise of construction materials in price is why in March, it appeared to the board of the school that they had the funding. And now it's turning out the prices have risen, and what they had secured, they need to put their hand out again. So that does not trouble me. Others may feel different.
Comments?
Yes. I'm sure most of you are aware that at the March 28th meeting, this council voted unanimously to permit the school to give them permission to build because it is town property. However, we were told at that meeting, and this is what I based my vote upon. I can't speak for anybody else. I'm sure council will correct me, as we so well do. I based my vote on, there was no negative comment at that public discussion. And we were told, as been stated many times tonight, we've got the funds available, period. So I said, well, okay, nobody's speaking against it. They've got the money. What's the problem? Oh, it seems now that we need more transparency. I don't like the word blindsided, but there needs to be more transparency. At that same meeting, we were also told that it would be utilized for outdoor symphonies, theater, outdoor speaking engagements, children's events and weddings and things like that. We didn't hear anything about rock and roll and country music, which I'm a big fan of. So those are things that we heard that night that led to our vote.
I love going to concerts. I love going to these big deals, Billy Joel included. But I've been to them in places that are far removed from the populace of a town. You drive miles out and you can still hear the music in within the space that you don't really want to. So, but here it makes it very difficult. You're facing onto water that carries it down. And the level of noise of a football game is once, whatever, every other Friday or every Friday, whatever it is, and everybody's in for it. To pay for a ticket for the music concert, you're talking about fundraising. Well, I could hear it at my house and not buy a ticket. I mean, I don't see it as the fundraiser that you do or the ability to raise funds as you see it. I don't see that, because even when there was the music concert for the hungry, there were lots of people in because they were supportive, but at the same time, there were people all over town who heard all the music free.
May I have a second shot for a minute?
Since
we're going
I didn't want to praise. Yeah, that's good.
I'd just like to chime in with the council. I've lived here long enough to remember the Harbor Fest days when there was a great deal of noise. Well, it was, but every year, I mean, and there were other events that occurred. I don't see this as insurmountable, as Fletcher has said. I think that if there are issues, we can work to resolve them. I do see it as a potential funding stream for the school. It's property we own, and to me, it only makes sense to give them an opportunity to make money to do the repairs they need, which we're not funding.
Well, they could rent the property out, which for other things other than music venues or whatever, weddings, parties. And there are a lot of venues too. There's nothing else out there like that.
I'm just saying, I see it as a potential funding stream, and I also am not bothered by the fact that the plans are not fully fleshed out and continue to evolve. I have never known of a project that was everything thought out immediately and nothing occurred that required adjustments.
Blueprints?
No, I'm talking about the event.
Perhaps.
I mean, the events and what type of events would occur. Those things are gonna change over time.
Yeah.
Okay, let me think if I'm done. Okay, go
I
ahead.
think if we had an opportunity to have a town meeting on this, it would be fair to everyone. And to say, put it in constant comment. And close.
That's the contact.
Put it out there, let everybody know what's going on. This is one of those things that's going to affect a lot of people for a long time, and it's only fair that not just those who are in this room and in the know about it. Even the constant comment has its downfall, because there are some people who don't have email, but if it, get a town workshop or a town hall meeting on this one subject. I think it's important that everybody get a chance to talk about it and think about it. What is not for the pavilion's building, but for its uses.
Well, I mean, we're having a work session on that. I mean, we're gonna have another public session at the next meeting. We can certainly open it up. I think we're talking about,
I think we
we're
need
talking about
to
funding.
advertise it, get the word out there loud and clear what we're planning to do. I don't think this is totally representative one way or the other of
What do you think is lacking that hasn't been done? Do you want an article in the newspaper? What is it you want done?
Yes, everything,
Yeah.
all of the above.
Yeah, I agree.
Can we
Yes,
ask
all the public comment.
Can we ask you to solicit, Carol
We
Nolan
approved
or
something with
whatever?
sheet on there now.
Oh, good.
Excellent. We approved something that just kind of, oh, pavilion, wonderful, like that. Go on.
I would like to address the noise ordinance so that everybody's clear on where we are with that. That came before council for comment. And that was it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Spock, we do have a noise ordinance, but only in the business district, which this would not cover.
If you want to somehow govern this with noise, that
Maybe
you
it's
are
after me to
going to.
repeat, so let me repeat. We have a noise ordinance, but only for the business district. This is zone residential.
Zone park.
Park,
Recreation.
okay.
Yeah.
That's true, but the houses across the street are residential.
Wait a second. Residential everywhere else, isn't the noise ordinance, doesn't, what do you mean?
No,
It affects
just
all the business district?
It's in our
Because
code.
if your a neighbor's having a party and it's going on till 11 o'clock, that violates the noise ordinance.
We do not have a noise ordinance. Mr. Spock, if
Yeah, no, we have a noise ordinance for the business district. If you choose to do anything about governing this, you're gonna need to revise that ordinance.
So how can you call, make police call on a noise, on neighbors making noise? How do you make that legal?
The police are incredibly helpful.
We're off topic here. We're off topic here. Yeah, we get about the noise. This discussion was mostly about funding here tonight. Yeah, or whether we're not gonna vote on anything or continue this, so. We looked at voting options. We're getting ready to talk about a master plan. My concern is, that we've got a request, from this group for $100,000. What other things can we do for the town with $100,000? Are there other groups? Do we have a plan with, other monies that we could spend? It would be nice to have some kind of plan about what we're gonna do. What are we gonna do with our reserves? Are there other things that we could use?
I really have to say something
Yeah.
else, because when we were voting on our budget, I was in agreement to lower our property taxes to 27 cents per $100. And you people fought me to make it 28 because you insist, even though we knew we had all that money in the bank in reserves. You said, oh, if any emergency come along, we would need that money and we would be out of that money. And I was like, well, we still have all this money. You said, oh, no, and especially you, Cindy. You said, oh, no, we need this.
So it
money."
was a tie vote.
And so, right, and let you broke the tie. We needed that money because we knew nothing about having to give the school anything. Because they made it clear they just wanted us to approve it. That's it. So now here we go. We're gonna give this $100,000 to help the school. But we may have that same issue that we couldn't lower the property tax for the people in this town to 27 cents. So how can
Thank
we
you,
agree?
Ms. Gillespie. Thank you.
And then if we give them that 100, who's to say somebody else won't come and now they want money? And what are we gonna say? I'm still waiting for the town to put the playground equipment in my neighborhood since we've had the money for a year and a half. So I have to keep bringing my great grandchildren downtown to the Nancock School to the playground because it's not finished, but that money is there. So you see how aggravating it is now that we want to do something for somebody else and we haven't finished the things that we need to do. And we haven't spent the money for the things that we need to do. It is not fair. I mean, we have to look out for everybody in the town. And I mean, I was the one who voted to put the amphitheater there because I was convinced that it was gonna be for plays for children, adults, and things of that nature, picnics, whatever. I was convinced of that. But now I see a whole new picture, which definitely may not include me. Because no, I don't like that music, so I don't attend. So it may not include me at all. So part of my tax dollars is gonna go for that, which won't include me or most of the people in my neighborhood. And it's not fair. If we're gonna do it for one place, we're gonna have to make it a fund or something so that we can help other businesses, other entities or whatever. I was fine that we helped the battered women shelter. That was fine because they needed. I have been involved years ago with helping people there. So I know how desperately they need it. But now here's something that we were given the impression that we didn't have to do anything but pass the law to say that they could have it there. And now we're thinking about giving them $100,000, which you said that we really couldn't afford when it came to our taxes. That's my opinion, and I'm being frank, I don't go for that. Even though I want the opinion, I will not agree.
I can only justify my vote, Thelma, by saying that all I could see at that point was inflation. And those are operating expenses, which means, I mean, the town's bills are going up the same way yours and my household bills are going up.
Oh, you're talking about voting for tax.
For the 1 cent tax increase, which is modest, about as modest as you can make it.
But he just said that we would get that if we
We knew we
agreed.
had reserves even then.
Yes,
You're right.
and he said that we would still take that 100,000 from one of those
Well, I think,
operating.
I hate to cut people off, but I think the purpose of the meeting was to get proposals from Matt about what, if we had the money, council needs to think about it. We have a meeting coming up in 2 weeks. There'll be another public session. We could spend more time talking about this. So we don't, in 3 weeks, anyway, so we're not gonna vote on anything tonight. I think we pretty much, I'm sorry, yeah. I can't see who it is. Ken?
Ken Sedman, 23 Meadville. I hope that there's no consideration of discussion of rescinding your approval for this project, and of course, then paying the expenses to remediate the project or the landscape and so on. Ms. Doc mentioned that possibly, and I don't know if this is the case or not, the increase needed funding is because of the rise in the cost of materials to build the project. Is that the case? I don't know that for sure.
We
Board
don't know,
members?
Joni's nodding her head, yes.
but we
Okay.
don't know because we don't have a budget.
Now, the other thing is, so they said they had the money at the time, okay, we're assuming that they did have the time, now they don't because of the increase in cost. So, let me finish this, please. Wouldn't mind. My question is to the board members of the school and to Joni. If you decide not to give them the 100,000 they're asking for, is the project going ahead anyway? I see a yes back there. Board members?
We said yes to the project.
We don't have any- I mean,
I voted 100% for the
We're not-
project.
No, I'm talking about if you decide not to give the money, and I'm talking to the board members of the school now.
School.
Is the project going to go ahead anyway?
My understanding it is, I'm a board member.
We can't.
All right, then you have
Did
you just have a longer fundraising capital expense fundraising.
Yes, you said yes.
So it's gonna be done at some point.
Yes, that's my understanding, yeah.
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 Okay.
I think they realize, yeah.
There seems to be discussion about stopping it now too.
No,
And we're gonna lay all these
No, they're not on
restrictions
the
on it
table.
right now.
There's nothing that we are talking about that I understand that we're talking about at this table right now to say to stop. We're
No,
saying.
I agree with you, it's not gonna stop, but,
We're questioning whether it is right for this town to have this venue for the kinds of entertainment that we didn't think about in the first place.
This is a funding discussion, right?
So just
right,
strictly funding.
so discuss funding.
And that's what
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on your question. If the town does not provide the 100,000, where will that 100,000 come? And that was my question.
Capital campaign, I would guess.
Is that what you're saying, Jim? Okay, thank you.
So we're not gonna take the discussion. Thank you, Matt, for giving us the number. All right.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, so that we have a council meeting that always supports fourth Monday. All right, we're on to the main purpose of this meeting. Was the discussion of our score the town plan proposals. Uh, And everybody's had a chance to look at the proposals, Matt. Yeah. You want to go over the proposals again real quick? It's good to start, bring it up.
Well, we have four. Oh, that's, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Yeah.
What's real quick, please, why didn't you tell me where CRSA is located? I couldn't put it on their proposal.
Yeah.
They're in Salt Lake City. I did the same thing. I'm like, where are these, where are they located?
What is it in the proposal?
It's in there, the address is in
Okay,
page 3.
And it's all. I'll just read it off.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I had a, proposal we have on, somebody, video. Fraser was depending on. They're actually,
Services are.
No, it's a separate, they're just, we may not get the other people to sign.
We'll speak up so you can hear.
And we can break this out
Yeah.
into each of the segments and award them to different people if we so choose.
Why would we do that? We don't know what.
Some may have strengths that others do not have, based on the information they've given us.
One being spelling.
On the title page, one of them spelled an Hancock without the second C. I mean, without the second C.
If I was ever graded on spelling, I would never be hired for anything. Yeah, they always Fraser. There's always one way to spell a word.
The one who's worked for us for years, you know.
Yeah, you should have known.
Right out the door.
So that's,
How are we gonna do this?
I think we just start with opinions and take it from there.
Well, when we submitted the request for proposal, we put in there how we were gonna score these proposals, and that's how they responded. So it would be problematic to do it any other way.
So did you come to a point where one of these was outstanding to you?
I'm not, I scored them, yes.
Your opinion, it counts.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, but you're voting, so I don't get to do that.
But I just want to, listen, you're the guy who's gonna oversee all of this.
My problem with Fraser is because they only submitted for half, they couldn't get all the scoring. You know, so, you know, in my scoring, they only got a 77, where my highest got a 98.
And Hill is kind of like the second time around for them, because they've done, basically, I don't know whether they've done a town plan before.
they did. you know,
So, and they've
a long
done it
time
for
ago,
us.
I don't know, 20 years ago.
Since you
Not-
disclosed
not
your
even.
Fraser, what's your 98?
Maybe 20 years ago, because I know I was.
Yeah.
Davis, he's
I have a, I
98.
have 97 as chemical, and I have 98 with a question mark because of the CRSA. And I think that they're a little too big.
But there you
Was my comment, so, but it can't be, my scoring, you guys. have to- Okay, yeah, those two, in my opinion, scored the highest. Hill scored an 81. And Fraser scored a 77, with the caveat that they're not being considered for the other half, so it's kind of hard to, when we went through the scoring model, it says qualifications, experience with signage, staff availability, experience with signs and lighting, and then parking. Well, they didn't go for parking. They only went for signage, but not the lighting, so they couldn't get the points for each of those. So there's no way that they could mathematically get scored. So that's my caveat.
Okay.
Scoring it that way,
Well,
because we
then-
said at the outset that we could break this out.
Well, you can.
So we
split it
allowed them
between-
to write it that way.
Yeah, with the RFP says that we're allowed to split it out. So if you say, look, we want to do Fraser for signing, then you can do Fraser for signing. It's
I'm just
just, you
saying
asked
that-
about my scoring, and that was my scoring.
Very good.
All right,
Was Fraser asked only for wayfinding?
yes.
Why?
Asked or submitted.
Well, there's,
Asked to
I mean,
submit.
they have incredible gifts in that area, so I don't want to take anything away from that. So yeah, they submitted with their strong, no question.
I really liked what Utah did. Utah, that's the RSA. In page 5 of their proposal, which gave us a step-by-step of what they plan to do. And that makes sense to me, but if the company is in Utah,
Well, they also might have a field office here. I mean, that could just be their mailing
but not
address.
mine, but do they?
I don't know. If you guys decide you want me to further the conversation, our RFP says that we're gonna bring 2 firms back for full RFPs and quotes. Right now, we just asked to be scored on those in the RFP, so this is phase 1. Phase 2,
I have real concerns about somebody in Utah trying to do a plan for our town. They don't know Virginia law. They don't have, in-depth experience in Virginia. I did find it compelling that Fraser knew about the VDOT requirements for signs and are familiar with that. Which the Utah people are not gonna
I
know.
know they don't.
Well, if they have a field office here, they probably do.
They didn't mention it.
I
To me, they
noticed
would have
that.
mentioned it. They talk about a few visits. They don't quantify how many.
Well, I mean, I thought, I think public input is a big part of this. We're gonna have couple sessions in the theater. Just worry about somebody in Utah coming all over here and running a couple public sessions,
Wouldn't that inflate their cost?
Yeah, well, we would not do it, we don't have any cost. Like you said, we're gonna pick a couple people and interview them more. So we have another bite at this apple, which,
Let's get this apple eaten.
we only have 4 people. I guess we gotta weed it down to a couple. Now, Fraser, Fraser is currently, works with Main Street correctly. Yeah, so they're the ones that are doing our plans for our,
Not with, they are contracted by the state to provide services to Main Street communities within Virginia.
right.
So does that give them a leg up?
So all of the renderings that you've seen in number 20 Market Street were produced by Fraser. Fraser has given us some preliminary signage designs because they knew we were going to be working on that.
because they work with the state, do they have a competitive bidding and state contract rate? Or do we get a discount because they work with the state?
You're asking me things I don't know
Well,
about.
that's
them
what
per-
the fact that they work with the state doesn't have any impact. The fact that they know VDOT is great, but the fact that they have state relationships doesn't help the town. It helps the town because they
Yeah,
know us.
No, I was just
you know,
explaining
yeah.
how they're involved with Main Street. And if I may offer one thing, because I'm hearing something that you're asking, we've also spoken with Hill Studios early on, in Main Street, and Hill, of course, did back when, Duke Shanahan was on the council, was the last time they did a plan. Hill Studio did that plan for the town. The one, remember that one?
I do have it.
Yes, and Hill explained to us recently that, and you know this, that some of these all-inclusive companies that do this kind of plan are actually gonna subcontract out like certain sections. They're gonna hire somebody who will come and do the community engagement section of it. So it's to pick something like Cindy's talking about and say, let's give this to them and then let's give this to them. You're kind of doing what some of these big companies do anyway. You're just choosing to do it with people that you know. So I hope that's helpful, just to kind of understand how some of this works. It doesn't have to be you choosing that.
Mail it out.
It's hard to figure out.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't know the first thing about hiring a company to do signage or something. I don't know how we would piecemeal this. And if somebody who knows what they're doing in town planning says, okay, we have to go to Joe Blow to do this, then that's how you do it.
Well, Fraser's not really a town planning person.
No, they don't, no, they bid for what they would,
Yeah.
special knowledge.
I don't think we're piecemealing it out anymore than you get Fraser the signage thing and then hire somebody else to do the rest of it. That would be the only difference.
They would hire, we would hire. I mean.
We would hire
say-
Fraser to do that part of it.
Are we talking
We
about?
might.
hiring
We might,
somebody?
we could hire Fraser to do what they bid for, which is just signage and wayfaring,
Right.
and then hire Pinnacle or somebody else to do the rest of the plan. And that would be just two
The
people,
rest of them.
right? So there would be two differences, and I assume they would work with the people that we hire to do the plan. If there's something comes out of it, we could do it that way. I don't think that's gonna be difficult for the town.
Also, but there's a little bit of money that is still residing with auto. That was part of that grant that we got to do branding, that they will be giving the town some guidance with incorporating the town brand and colors and
Logo.
style into the signage, the look of the signage. So that's still coming to you guys.
And also, Matt, you mentioned at one time that the Virginia Tourism Grant of $50,000 that we were going to use for walking out and so on, that would could use that to offset the wayfinding
Yes,
funding.
yeah, so that could be a
Yeah.
really great kickstart to whatever one of these
Right.
consultants comes up with.
Okay, here's my 2 cents worth. For what it's worth. I've studied all these. I really don't see any reason to separately hire a company to do one specific thing. When we have two outstanding companies who have presented, they will do it all, yeah. And so I don't think we could ever find a company, and I understand your concerns about they are in Utah, but their proposal is far and above all the others, in my opinion. I could also go with the Pinnacle Group. They also, I thought, did an outstanding job. Those to me are the only two considerations that I would.
The
Yes.
concern I had with the Pinnacle one was that there were no mentions or examples of small town. All of their work seemed to be
I wrote that
a
on here.
different direction and flavor of what the requirements were that I think we would be talking at cross purposes and that was a concern for me.
I put that
agree
on the
with
front of
you,
mine.
Sarah. When I reread all of them, I found Pinnacle very convincing on the lighting and parking issues. More so than some of the other proposals. I have a hard time believing that a group of civil engineers are going to do a whole lot of community engagement. That just isn't what they do. You know, they sit down and they do math and crunch numbers and plans. Yeah. So I mean, to me, they were highly qualified for the parking and the lighting. That said, I personally like the wayfinding for Fraser, simply because they have so much experience and have done it across all of the rest of the state, basically. As far as the remaining piece, I could go with either of these two groups. This one is extremely well written.
Which two groups?
Real Studios and CRSA. CRSA is extremely well written. And I hate to be cynical, but it's one thing to write a proposal and it's another thing to deliver what we want.
Well, how could you know that?
We're gonna bring them in,
Experience.
is that, am I correct? We're bringing two in.
And references, I would
Well-
say is a big part of this, because I agree with you, we have to find small town, the fact that they did Manhattan was great. But, that doesn't really help when we've got, a mile.
And it's
square.
more compelling for Hill Studios in that they have a broader experience in Virginia. Small towns.
They do.
However, we never, or the other proposals never happened.
Well, that was not their problem. No, it was not, they were talking, that was not ever gonna happen. That was the other county, the planning commission said we had a bunch of money. We're gonna give you some money to do a plan. The council didn't really weigh in on that at all. And they did the plan without, much of our knowledge, and they just presented it to us, realizing half of it was on private property. Yeah,
Right.
right, yeah, and,
You can't do that.
can't do that, yeah. They've taken over my parking lot and made it a public park, so, that was not Hill's issue. Hill just finished up in Parksley, it didn't work with them. But I talked to council, I think we're gonna talk to these people again, so we can.
Right. I like that.
And I guess we could talk to all of them again, if we wanted to, but it's up to council, well, probably don't, there's only 4 of them. So.
I agree with the proposal that I keep calling Utah because I don't remember their initial. But Utah did I thought a thorough job, and I thought the path to the end result was written in the proposal. I didn't see that anywhere else.
Well, you were, the engineers were in the tenth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like we're all in agreement with Utah, it sounds like one person we want to talk to, is that correct? At least for the general plan,
Yes,
and whether or not we want to let them do the whole thing,
Right.
or let them, or talk to.
yes.
Okay, so are we agreed on that? That sounds like one thing.
That's CRSA, just to be absolutely clear.
Yeah.
I got moved up here. So,
I might be thinking Utah.
who is number 2?
May I offer one more thing too? I think I remember reading in the RFP that some community engagement had already happened, that would be used. Did I read that in the RFP or was it just?
Yeah, I
thought it
don't
comes-
remember.
Anyway, I just want to really emphasize, request that the council engage in new community engagement. What Main Street did, please don't rely on for this plan. This plan is too important. And it was done in 2017 and 18, and it was directed only towards the downtown, historic downtown in Hancock. So if you're doing a whole downtown plan, please engage somebody who is going to really give you a good community engagement return on this before they proceed. And don't just rely on what we got.
Well, isn't this just for downtown?
No.
No,
The whole town, all
Not
the
at all.
signage, parking lot,
Everything.
everything.
This is from the
Yeah,
downtown
never
to the
mind, never
north.
mind. I have- Yeah.
Yeah, you blinked.
Yeah, Main Street is really is focused on downtown, but this is not. This is not, their mandate is, more man downtown, so no, this is definitely the whole town. So I think move on, we're looking at this one, so the question is, what are we gonna do with the second one? Do we want to, talk to these people first and see, what we think, and then.
We need a second place. The RFP tells them that if they don't come in competitively priced or for whatever reason we can't reach a conclusion,
Right.
then we've got somebody right behind them.
Okay.
And I think that's important for them to know.
Okay.
Is there any reason we could not talk to more than 2?
Well, we only got 4, so, I think that if we did the top 2, we could surely call the
Hold
other
on,
two.
Sarah's got her comment here.
In Hill, they mentioned that they had done work for Parksley and Chincoteague. But they did not elaborate on either of those in their illustrations. And that just made me wonder why they would have omitted what details of the 2 that we would have the best access to check out.
And before and after photos or something.
That it may have been a timing issue that was not feasible to include, but that just
But I think,
made me wonder.
I think it's publicly available.
well, we could go there.
I'm almost sure. about
But I mean, as far as the. I don't know. It seemed strange that they would cite it as local and not make the effort to incorporate it.
Look what we did.
What is how that struck me.
I think they
I agree.
rushed the application and, you know, did it pretty quickly.
I like Pinnacle. Everybody else just go with Dennis number 2 and Ron.
I agree.
The thing about them, as I said, is that do they know what to do with a small town?
And that's something we could ask.
But are they who should be the second choice?
Maybe it gives you, and sometimes it's new blood.
Well, the issue is
New
we
perspective on
you
things,
can't
so
accept-
looking at things.
Fraser
in a-
can't be the
in a
second choice
different
because we
way.
need somebody to do the whole plan. So we can either do a combination for second choice, you know, or build, you know, so we're kind of thinking, Fraser was never part of the whole plan, so they're gonna have to be part of another. So maybe included in the second.
No.
If
Then,
we don't,
then we'd only go with the one company that does the entire plan.
right, why salt, you know, break it up like this, go with the two that have the whole thing in mind and let them come to, you know, if they want to.
Sarah, who would you
Farm out.
select for number 2?
I don't know why the pressure is on to go to one company, I feel it.
Well, they're only talking about one. part of it.
I
Get an impression.
who your number 2 would be.
I think despite the concern about the not including details of Parsley and Chickadee, probably Hill. Because at least we know that they have done small town work.
Well, I think some of this is gonna depend on what kind of bid they come back with. And, you know, I think, you know, what we talk money wise here, we don't know, you know, so.
So we have Hill or Pinnacle.
And I think we should interview 3 of them. If you want to throw out Fraser, fine. But
Goes out to have
they're
it.
convincing to me for the whole thing. So I mean, I can go with pieces of these 3 and exclude the wayfinding if you want to. But I can't go with Utah as a major choice. It's a beautifully written proposal. It's a proposal.
Yeah, but so is all the rest of it. Everything else is a proposal. Everybody puts their best
Well,
foot
that's the thing,
forward.
we get-
Otherwise, why bother putting it out
I would
there?
rather talk to 3 of them.
Why bother putting it out
So
there?
you're-
if you're not gonna do it?
The 3 excluding Hill. So
They're
Sierra,
excluding Fraser, because they just put in for things.
so Hill, Pinnacle,
If
Sierra.
that's spelling error.
That's my proposal.
How long is it gonna take this to do?
Fraser is.
Sure. I'm okay with that.
So the RFP says that negotiations be conducted with the firm with the highest rank of the evaluation team. If a contract that is satisfactory and advantageous to the town of Hancock can be negotiated at a price considered fair and reasonable, the evaluation team will recommend that firm to the town council. Otherwise, negotiations will be the first ranked thereafter. So we never say we're going to interview multiple.
Well, we could go with one person, and if we don't like them, we go down to the second person.
That's exactly right. If we don't believe that it's a good fit for us, we can go to the next person, but we're not gonna line them up and say, 1, 2, 3,
And we had no provision for interviewing all of them and asking questions.
Is there a difference between negotiation and just an interview?
In fact,
Well, they have to come forward with a quote, they have to get all the specifications, and then at that point, if we believe that we can get what we want for the money that we have, then that's what we say that we're gonna do. If that doesn't work out, then we go to number 2 and try to stick.
No, I'm asking, if you've got questions about these organizations, is an interview, an initial interview to become more familiar with them? Is that really the beginning of a negotiation? or is
That's a
that-
very fair question.
So we can,
Is can we,
to narrow it down, we can talk to them quickly, I guess. One, yeah.
Do you want to put an evaluation team together so that we're not trying to coordinate,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
seven schedules?
And we could have a quick, like a 15 minutes,
It'd be a Zoom
Wait,
call.
wait, this is a council decision, not a, not
well, that's it, suggestion.
That's what I'm saying. The evaluation team would be you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
all of us.
yeah, we could have a tight meeting.
All
with
of
somebody.
council.
That's your call. If you want to do
That's
all
what
of
I'm
council.
Is there some reason we can't submit written questions to them?
I think
And
that would be
ask them to
incredibly
respond.
helpful to them. I think that would be incredibly helpful to them.
Prior to interviewing?
Yeah,
Like, what is your experience with small towns?
yeah.
That would be good to, you know, then they
No, that
can
would be a really
So
smart idea.
we're not requiring them to come up with a proposal or anything. We're just gonna ask them some questions.
Right.
Which is not a lot of time out of their,
And at
Correct.
that point, we will not know the price or anything.
and we're still trying, that sounds like, is everybody comfortable with that? At least it gives us more options available.
Is this, wait a minute, RFP's done a lot. So when you do that and when you do the process, what is the normal process? Is it going through something like this to say, let's ask you questions before we talk to you again?
I think if there's any clarity questions, you can absolutely ask
Right, but
questions.
clarity questions.
And I think it's very fair to ask the same questions of each of the, and nobody's gonna have an issue with that.
Okay.
Nobody.
Well, we need to find out, number one, are
I just
they gonna
wanna
come here?
understand the process.
And if they work with small towns are critical, you know, for us, and what do they know about, you know? Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get the nuts and bolts about what kind of a lamps design we're gonna have. Yeah, but,
I think it's important to clarify their proposal for community engagement.
yeah, yeah, whether they're gonna be able to be on, you know, what, they have a local, you know, company, and, or have they had experience working with small towns?
Anything else we can think of? In the ones that I'm accustomed to, Mavis, there's a list of questions that they receive and they're asked to give their best and final response. And then after that, that's, you know, the standard to which they're held.
Thank you. That's a good point. I didn't understand this process.
Well, none of us have.
That's okay. I didn't understand this part of the process.
I would also say, Virginia specific
Yeah, projects.
requirements, projects.
Do you all want to email
Compliance.
me, you know, a few questions each, and then I can
Right.
compile them and you can filter it down to a top
Yeah.
10 or 5 or whatever?
By company.
No, one set of questions for everybody, that way each question, you know,
To all the respondents.
I would say that we've got, CRSA, Pinnacle, and Hill.
Yeah, I think that's the Fraser's.
That's good.
All right, and then, so what are we gonna, are they gonna answer the questions, or are we gonna try to talk with them at some point?
Well, they have to answer the questions, and then I think you can interview them at that point.
All right, so let's get a timeline on about these questions, so we don't extend this until months and months and months. Yeah. Yeah, so you got till next Tuesday to get questions in the map, and then we'll forward them on to them, is that okay?
Well, and then I have to send it back to you to filter it down. I would imagine I'm gonna get 20 questions, and I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
okay. All right, and then.
How about Friday?
This coming Friday? You know, this is Veterans Day, so we won't be here, so
Oh.
email away.
Okay, let's make that Monday. Monday.
Don't take away your day off.
All right, so how fast they're gonna get back to answer our questions, maybe. Yeah, it's up to them, I can't tell them, they make us get back to us.
So, but what kind of deadline?
No.
A week to answer our questions, we could get it back, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so we could have some answers by next council meeting, yeah. All right, I think that's good.
So we need, because so we can move forward.
I got it here.
So the
14.
So the 20th, you guys will have questions to me.
No, today is the 8th. We'll give you the
Oh, today's the
questions by
8th.
the 14th.
Thank you. That was what I was looking for. And then they have a week to respond.
Right,
Okay, that was what I was looking for.
And
well,
the-
you've got to get the questions back to us after you get them,
Yeah, that's exactly.
take a few days to get, you know.
A day. A day.
The-
Turn it around in a day.
Well, let's do 48 hours. Okay, sorry, that's fine. All right,
And
I
the-
got it.
just to highlight that 2 weeks from now is Thanksgiving week. So probably not a lot's gonna be coming back then.
So the 14th, am I correct enough? The 14th, we have the questions?
Yeah, this is.
21st. On November the 21st, the council.
Yes, no, 28th. The Monday
Oh,
after.
that's right.
One, two, three, 14.
If we don't get it,
I'll give me-
I need to do it right. All right, we okay on that? Right, couple comments, anybody?
I do.
Okay.
Matt, I know nobody feels worse about this task kerfuffle than you do. My question is, it came in 17 days later. And our residents are going to see a tax increase. You received the information back on November 3rd. And you expect to mail them on the 18th. And according to law, they have until January 1st, right? No,
They have to pay it by 12/31.
which get by 12, that's what you want to change it to.
No, well, what
Okay.
I'm gonna do is it has to be December 5th. That's the due date. What I'm saying is that we won't assess penalties and interest until the first of the year. That allows people to pay past the 5th. I'm saying this
It
online.
would be the same, they would have to have paid it by the 5th, but you've got a little margin for error here because of timing.
Because of the time.
And are you gonna do this by newspaper or something, or let people know what's going
And
on?
we're gonna put a note inside their tax bill.
Okay, fine.
Do we have to approve this?
I don't
Okay,
It's
well,
administrative.
okay,
To approve, yeah,
pardon me,
there's really nothing to approve.
extending the tax date. Oh,
No, you're.
Giving a grace period.
You're not assessing penalties and interest until the end of the calendar year.
4 years ago, when I canvassed the town, other than the number one issue of water was, please break our tax bills into 2 payments like the county does. I know it's an additional town expense to mail them out.
It's not even that. It's that when the county gives us our book, it's in one payment. That's just the way the county.
But yet they do their
payment.
taxes in 2 payments.
Strange.
Yes,
That's true.
yes. Talk to the county and see if it's a possibility.
Well, we need to
Explore it.
decide whether the council wants to do that or not.
Yeah,
Okay,
Okay, no, that's true.
But I'm happy to learn from the county if that's actually possible.
talked about
They
this
treat
before.
us and Kankakee the same way because we use the same accounting system, the same tax software. So they got their information on the 31st. We got our information on the 31st, but ours was wrong, so they had to go back and fix it.
Right.
So we didn't get it until the 3rd, but Chincoteague and we are in the exact same boat.
Do any other towns do, but they're all just a one payment.
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
That is-
I-
Cape Charles is one payment, I know that.
Yeah, yeah. I understand your position. We haven't had much input in anybody asking for that, to be honest with you. So, it's a good thing
Well,
to.
People think whatever it is, it is.
Well, yeah, we can certainly discuss. It is gonna be a lot more, it is a lot of fair
And
amount
I
of work
think
for the
there's
town.
been some misconception in the past that people cannot pay ahead on their taxes. If you have a tax bill that comes in December and next year you want to split it up and pay us every month, you can absolutely do that. You can prepay ahead if you want. I'm not sure where that got out there
People
that
come in and prepay their taxes.
there's some people that do for
Oh, yeah.
budgeting purposes, yes. They'll say, okay, I know I'm getting this big bill
Well,
in
the council
December, let me give you
discussed, there is
$200.
I don't know, it seems like to me, if we try to complicate anything with the county, we're gonna be into more problems, but I could be wrong, with them to send them a tax bill twice, but it could happen. I mean, we can certainly look at it. We've discussed it before and, the council's discussed it. If the council wants to do that, we should move forward on it, look at it, and we find out what it's gonna cost us in hours and, if the citizens really are interested in doing that.
Right, postage and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah, it's gonna cost us a couple $1,000s probably.
No, it's gonna cost us an extra million.
Well, we have to pay for the tax conversion. That's the other thing. We have to pay our software company to convert it to our format.
Well, how many tax bills you sent out?
So that is,
700.
that would be,
700.
The postage on 700 alone is $400.
Yeah. And then you've got
You
the-
don't get a bulk rate.
What's that?
Do you get a bulk rate from that?
No. Which, yeah, I know.
Okay,
Okay.
there are costs associated, with it, but there might be benefits too, so, yeah. Okay, that was,
Just okay.
if you want to put that on the agenda, that's. Anybody else comments? Motion to adjourn? So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Correct. Oh, yeah, we do.
I can understand the rule of the work session.
Yeah, yes. It's not.
But I can make it on that.
Well, we have to push the golf.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
We can't vote on anything in the work.
See you, Ray.
So you